Good morning, Sacral Magic community. Happy Monday. Hope you're all having a fabulous start to the week. You know, we are one person off from being 300 members inside of this group, so I'm wondering who our lucky 300th person is going to be. But I'm super thrilled and stoked to see that we are nearly at 300 members. I think at the beginning of the year we were at like 170, so yay, epic. I wanted to come live today to talk with you about a very, very important component of your human design chart. And this is specifically for the emotional authority amongst you all. So that's roughly about 45%, 50% of you. If you are a sacral being, a generator or a manifesting generator, about half of you will be emotional authority. Now, we've done a lot of delving into the sacral and the sacral mechanics and the sacral respondability and like the sacral magnetism and the aliveness inside of this Facebook group. And equally important for you, if you are a emotional authority, is to learn how to love your wave, because being an emotional authority, it adds a whole deeper layer of context and complexity to your human design. You've got the sacral that's always feeding yes, no, yes, I've got energy for that, I don't have energy for that, yes, no. It's always attracting and then so it attracts information from the field, it pulls it into the sacral, and then it has response to it, yes or no. Do that, don't do that. But if you are an emotional authority, so you've got the sacral information that's happening, but you also have overlaid on top of that your emotional wave. And your emotional wave will have a very specific quality to it. And depending on what channel you have activated from your emotional solar plexus center, that triangle off to the far right of your body graph, will actually tell you the quality of your emotional wave and the specific type of wave that you will go on. I go into this in a lot more detail in my sacral business readings, just as an FYI. I have a couple of them available. I'll tell you a bit more about them at the end of this live stream. But what I've found for people who are emotional authorities, and it seems to be across the board, and this was my experience as well, is that we can actually see our emotional waves as being something that we have to grit our teeth and bear. Sometimes it's like this rush to get out the other end of the low. And it's particularly the low. When we're in the low of an emotional wave, can you learn to love it? And that's a question I asked a client last week, and it was like, whoa, it opened up so much for her. And I've actually been mulling on this topic since then. The importance of learning to love your emotional wave so that you can figure out and sink into the power of it and learn how to actually turn it into your greatest selling and sales asset. Which for a lot of people, they're like, how would I do that? My emotional wave is chaos. It's roller coaster. It's up, it's down, it's inconsistent. Like, how would that actually become an asset for me in my business? And I'm going to share with you my opinion about this, my approach to it. So your emotional wave adds deeper levels of context and clarity to your yes. So the thing we say with emotional authorities is that there is no truth in the now, which is, when I first heard that, actually it was quite relieving for me, because as an emotional authority, I had spent a lot of my life hungry for certainty, looking for clarity, and like second guessing, like, is this really a yes? I don't know, decision fatigue, like you name it, I experienced it. And when I learned that I was an emotional authority, and let me know in the comments if you are, as you're watching, say hi so I know who you are. When I learned that I was an emotional authority, and that emotional authority people, when we are 80% yes or 80% no, we are good to go. That was like, I felt like I was let off the hook in the greatest way, because I had spent a long time looking for 100% certainty. And in my own mulling over and contemplation of my emotional wave and the experience that I have inside of it, I've really looked at the difference between certainty and clarity. Certainty is something that we are often hungry for as emotional wave people, because our body remembers everything. It remembers what it felt like when it was at the high, and it remembers what it felt like when it was at the low. And we need to find some sort of middle ground. When we're making a decision, we need to run it through our emotional wave, which we do need to do for big decisions, right? That's the caveat here. For big decisions, you want to make sure that you're not spontaneously, impulsively, if you're a manifesting generator, you probably know this pretty well, just going with the sacral yes all the time. The sacral will always be discerning yes, no. But the emotional authority, your emotional wave guides you to clarity. So your emotional wave is actually helping you to feel into, across a period of usually 48 to 72 hours, whether a decision, a big decision, is the right decision for you. So this might look like, launching a new program, investing in that particular mentor, burning your business down and rebuilding, quitting your business altogether, starting a whole new business, moving interstate, leaving your partner, these kinds of big decisions that have a ripple effect on our lives. It's really important that we learn how to slow down and take our time with them. And I like to use this analogy of like titrating your emotional wave, titrating a decision through your emotional wave. So if you have a big decision, or if you've been given an invitation, you need to make a decision. I always check where my sacral is at the beginning of that decision, of like the beginning of that wave. I'm like, okay, so right now my sacral is a yes. And then I will navigate, I will surf the emotional wave until I get out the other end, feel what it's like when I'm at the high, am I still a yes? Feel what it's like when I'm at the no, am I still a yes? And then when I'm back into the middle, that's when I make my decision. If I'm 80% yes, then it's good for me to move on. If I'm less than 80% yes, it is a no. And this is where we need to get very clear on exactly how, like, standards and boundaries. Do I honor what my body is asking for? Is that a standard for me? Do I honor and then express that out into the world? So a lot of clients that I work with who are emotional authorities can tend to have a real relationship with their wave, right? And that relationship might not necessarily be a relationship that is empowering or a relationship that is conducive to their sales or to their business. A lot of what I see with clients who are emotional waves is that who have emotional authorities is that they will often find they can sell when they're in the high of their wave, but they find it really difficult to sell when they're in the low. Doesn't mean that they can't, just means that it's a totally different quality, brings out a completely different energy when you're in the low of a wave. When you're in a high and you're high vibe and you're feeling really good and you're on top of the world and anything is possible and I can do whatever, like it's easy to sell from that place, especially with the sacral activation, right? The sacral is alive. We're in the body. We're feeling lit by life. We're feeling alive. We're feeling like I've got vitality and energy, and that is magnetic. It translates in a really beautiful way, really powerful way. But then are we meant to maintain that energy when we are legitimately in the low of a wave? And this is a question I've sat with a lot over the years. And the answer I've come to is no, we're not meant to maintain that. We are absolutely not, like we don't have to maintain that same level of aliveness and excitement and joie de vivre. Like we are not meant to do that when we are in the low. And what I have come to through my own personal contemplations, and it's important that you have your own contemplations of your own wave and your own experience, and that you become like an investigator and you really you research and you feel your way through it and you report on it. I've got journalings in my books and notebooks, like as I've documented how I feel at each point of my waves over the past 4 years. When you're in the low of a wave, I believe that's sacred time for you. That's sacred opportunity. It's a sacred opportunity for you to not have to be on show, for you to come into your own energy and really sink into your own inner experience. So I used to really want to rush my way through the low of a wave. I really didn't want to be there. I would always be rushing, trying to get out the other end without realizing that, of course, what you resist persists, yes. And so you'd end up extending the low of the wave and it would be this big, arduous, long experience. And I've learned that the more I can, like as soon as I recognize that I'm in a low, that's an opportunity for me to be like, okay, I know what my low feels like. I know that when I'm in the low, I'm far more likely to doubt. I'm far more likely going to want a cocoon, not wanting to be as visible, not wanting to be as open and on display, not wanting to be as vulnerable or transparent or intimate with people in my world. unless it's my family, my friends, my loved ones, my clients who I already have more intimacy with. So when I'm in the low, and I also have a line 2, and that line 2 loves to hermit when she's in a low. She loves to go into her cave. But it's important for me to recognize that when I'm in cave mode, is it like creativity that's brewing in my system, which tends to be the case these days. I find that there's a melancholy that comes with being in the low, and it's a really poetic experience for me. It's super beautiful. It's got a very different quality to when I'm in the high. I'm slower. My frequency is more still. I'm naturally quieter. I want to move more slowly. I don't want to be my MG racing car self. I want to just like sink into the moment and be in the presence of the moment. And in that moment, when I am in the low and I'm being present and mindful, that's when I get my best ideas. That's when I'm most receptive to the world, because I'm not like firing on all cylinders. I'm slow. I'm listening. My body is giving me feedback and information. And if I'm smart, I capture that information. I write it down. I journal about it. I talk to it with my mentors. I voice note. I love voice noting, and I go back and I listen. I'm like, and I capture the gold that's available in the low of the wave. There is so much beauty and creativity and like slowness that directly translates into your sales, into your content, into your service delivery, into your marketing. So I find that when I'm doing this practice of documenting my emotional experience when I'm in the low and of listening, that I actually get my best ideas. I don't action them then. Absolutely not. I do not action them. But what I do is I make note of them and I chew on them. I like to chew on things. How does it feel when I'm in the low? Okay, it feels good. All right, that's a good sign. Okay, now I'm going to come out the other end and I'll probably hit into another wave. How does it feel when I'm at the high? Oh, it still feels good. Okay, I'm going to run with that. New program idea. New messaging angle. When it comes to sales, I believe that your sacral is always guiding you. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Do that. Speak into that. Don't do that. Resist that. Energy for that. And you can directly funnel that energy into your minute-by-minute sales process, right? The content, the marketing, the process, the sales pipelines that you're creating. But your emotional wave actually feeds that. It nourishes that. And if you're not working in tandem with your sacral and your emotional wave, you're actually missing out on 50% of your creative power, of your creative possibility. So as creative beings, creatrixes, as people who are out there, doing their service, building personal brands, sinking into their life's work and getting paid beautifully well to do what they're here to do at a soul level mission, your creativity is one of the core burners that fuel your business, fuel your self-expression, fuel your marketing and your content and your service delivery and your offerings. It all relies on your creativity and your ability to feel your way there. Feel it move through you. It's not coming from the head. It's not coming from AI or from a computer. It is coming up and out from your body, from your sacral, from your heart, up through, out the throat. And the low of the wave nourishes and nurtures. It's like the seeding, like you drop seeds. It's the fertile ground. And then you sit with it and you sit with it, and then it out blooms the beautiful flowers. Now, I want to share a story because my client who I was talking to about learning to love her wave, I was really supporting her and holding her through as she was going through this roller coaster ride of her emotional wave, as she was launching a new offering. And often when you're in launch mode, this is when you got to do this work the most, okay? Because your launches are going to trigger everything if you're not careful. And it's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's actually a rightful thing. And so I supported her through the wave, and there was times when she was like, what am I doing? I don't want to do it. It feels too hard. It feels too much. Nothing's working. Nothing's working. Breathe through the wave, maintain your posture, maintain the vision, keep your eye on the prize. It's all good. We're going to feel what we're going to feel, but we're not going to be knocked off course. She gets out the other end of her wave, plugs into my Say Cool Yes Hypno Journey, which all of you should also have access to. She said, I got a message from her before. It's changed the game in every level, every aspect of her business. So beautiful. She created a reel, and then that reel went completely and utterly viral. That was on Friday, just gone, went completely and utterly viral on her Instagram account. So she went from 12,000 followers to 30,000 followers over the weekend. Like, blew the fuck up. And I can really see upon reflection that, like, if she had have not allowed her emotional wave to destabilize her, it would have been a very different experience. But we need to know how to stay anchored throughout the experience of being on the roller coaster of your wave. How do I stay with my eye on the prize, my eye on my goal, my eye on my intention? How do I hold fast to that steadiness at the same time as I'm emotionally going up and down and up and down and up and down? So when you're in the low of a wave, you're going to be more susceptible to external influences. You're going to be more susceptible to being hooked by topics on the internet, in the news, in the economy, conversations with your partner, frustrations from clients. You're going to find that you're much more porous energetically, and so susceptible to what's happening around you. It's very important when you are in the low to practice energetic hygiene, to practice like really coming into your cave inside, into your safe space inside of your system. Doing the practices that you know you need to do to maintain high frequency. So for a long time, I actually felt like if I was feeling emotionally low, that I was somehow like amplifying bad manifestations towards me. That was a belief. I don't even know where I picked it up. I feel like it's quite a collective thing. You know, if I'm giving too much energy to low emotions, then I'm going to cultivate a low frequency. And then that's going to repel the manifestations that I'm trying to create. And I've really sat with, so what happens when we are designed to have high frequency, low frequency moments? High emotional expression, low emotional expression. If I'm feeling emotionally low, does that mean I am in a low frequency? And where I got to was absolutely not. When you are trying to avoid your emotional low, and when you're trying to rush through your emotional wave, and when you're judging yourself for feeling the way you feel and for life not looking suddenly the way you wanted it to look, and it's because you're feeling unstable and destabilized, then yeah, that's low frequency. But to be in the full expression of what it means to be human, to be on your knees, physically or metaphorically speaking, with your chest cracked wide open, in your heart, in the moment, crying, sobbing, moving, being, still active, but fully allowing that wave to crack you open. You are actually in one of the most high frequency states you can ever be in. It doesn't always have to look like dancing through meadows, life being so beautiful and so light. It's why grief is actually one of the most profound spiritual journeys you will go through, because it is heart cracked wide open. And your heart will crack wide open when you are in the low of a wave. Might not always happen, but it can. And it's a fucking beautiful thing. And when your heart is open, your creativity is unlocked. And when your creativity is unlocked, suddenly you have all these possibilities open. You get an idea. You're like, I'm going to go do a reel on that topic. And then your reel, all of a sudden, your Instagram account blows up. You get an idea. Go to the beach. Have a day lying in the sand, soaking in the water, like nourishing. And you're lying in the sand or you're soaking in the water, and you get the nudge to write about a particular topic or to go live and talk about a particular topic. And then someone, your next soulmate client, is watching that live stream, reaches out to you because your frequency was so potent, it magnetized them in. I see this happen all the time. It does happen all the time. Your emotional wave is one of your greatest sales assets, because it is guiding you to clarity, embodiment, creativity, stillness, listening, receptibility. You're not always meant to be on show. You're not always meant to be go, go, go. You're not always meant to be everything for everyone else. So next time you have an emotional wave, you're in the low, soak it up, suck the marrow out of it. Let yourself let it in. Let it into your body, into your heart, into your womb, into your cells. It doesn't have to always be for external reasons, but it can nourish you. And when you let your emotional lows nourish you, then all of a sudden the potency you have at the high of your wave becomes amplified even more powerful. You become even more magnetic. You become even more creative. You become even more like precise in what you're creating, what you're manifesting, what you're calling in. But anytime you're in resistance of your low, the equal effect happens where it dims and dulls your magnetism when you're at the high, because it's dishonest. There's dishonesty here. And I know this one very well. My life's work, Gene Key 59, the shadow of dishonesty. And this showed up in my emotional wave every single time until I got really, really comfortable with being uncomfortable in the low of my wave. And I waited it out, and I made it out. I made it out. Every time I made it out the other end, and I was like, okay, I'm still here. I'm still alive. My business is still businessing. I'm still seeing clients. I'm still being a mum. It's all good. I can do this. So we have to develop resilience in the low. And I feel if you learn and really collapse in your mind that the emotional lows are as important as the emotional highs, and that the emotional lows become the fertile ground, the fertile soil for what you're creating in the high, what you're putting out to the world, then you actually start to see the lows as being an essential part of the process and as being a crucial opposite action for your sales, right? So when you're in the low, ask yourself, what am I creatively inspired by right now? It might be related to business, it might not. So when I'm in a low, I'm often like, I'm at the piano, I'm writing, I'm in the ocean, I'm out in nature. I'm like slowing down my mind that's racing at 1,000 miles an hour. And I'm just being here right now. It's very similar energy for me as when I'm on my bleed. But it just means that it's, every 3 days instead of once a month. And it might not last. It might last a day. It might last an hour. It depends. It really depends. But I don't resist it anymore. When I see it coming, I'm like, okay, time for me. Time for my creativity, time for slowing down. I still see my clients. I still show up to my business, but it's a different quality. So I'd love for you to share with me, what are you most moved by, and where are you still resisting the low of your wave, and how can you bring more acceptance and like excitement and joy to this incredible opportunity that you have to experience the low. And that there can be beauty in the melancholy, poetry in the melancholy. Life doesn't, we cannot sustain high vibe, aliveness, higher frequency magnetism, output all the time. And if you're a manifesting generator or you have the channel of charisma, you're going to find that that's your unconscious knee-jerk reaction, is to always be out, always be on show, always be going, always be moving, because you've got that lightning in a bottle energy. And it's about retraining the body, that stillness and inward time, and yin is equally as important as the yang and the aliveness and the firecracker energy. The two go hand in hand. And when you do that, when you bring balance to that, you're going to notice a different frequency, a different quality in your sales. It all starts with the low. So I wanted to share that. That's been really alive for me, for my clients in the last kind of 3 or 4 days. Where are you at with your emotional wave? Let me know. And as I flagged at the very beginning, I do have a special at the moment on sacral business readings. I've got one left. So this is a 90-minute deep dive with me and you on your human design, on your sacral sales strategy, and on your business model. We look at where the gaps are, where you've been operating in a misaligned way, misaligned to your design. And I give you really powerful implementable strategies so that you can realign back to the natural way that you are designed to sell and market and serve in your business. And I find like that even the emotional authority piece, the low that we've spoken about, makes major shifts, like all the time. And if you haven't gotten the Sacral Yes Hypno Journey, just let me know in the comments and I will send it your way. Ciao for now.